Good morning, and welcome to our journalists for joining us today on Major League Soccer's State of the League address with MLS Commissioner Don Garber. I'm Dan Cordemanch with Major League Soccer. We're joining you today from Major League Soccer's headquarters in Midtown Manhattan, kind of our virtual studio for today's State of the League address as we cap off our 26th season. Today's format, standard format that you're all used to, we'll have Commissioner Garber make some remarks to kick things off, and then we'll turn it over to our journalists. You'll be able to ask questions to Commissioner Garber. I think you're all relatively familiar now with the Zoom process. You raise your hand, you'll be put into a queue. We do have more than 125 folks on the Zoom session right now, so we ask that our journalists be patient and flexible. Certainly want to answer as many questions as possible today. So exciting matchup this weekend in Portland. Commissioner Garber will share more. So now, let's turn it over to Major League Soccer's Commissioner, Don Garber.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you all for joining us today for the annual MLS end of season State of the League. You know, as you all know, our 26th season will culminate this Saturday when the Portland Timbers host their first MLS Cup at Providence Park against NYCFC, playing in their first MLS Cup. The game will take place at 12 noon local, 3 p.m. Eastern, and we broadcast in English language on ABC Sports and in Spanish on Unimas. The game will also be broadcast in Canada on TSN and TVA and in nearly 200 countries around the world, and that's a record for us. You know, this was another year of momentum for Major League Soccer, both on and off the field. I'm going to talk about that a bit. Give me a couple of minutes, and then we'll go to questions, as Dan had mentioned. Austin FC joined the league as our 27th team this year, with fans selling out every game in their brand new stadium and showcasing to the world another example of MLS at its very best. In addition to the spectacular Q2 Stadium in Austin, we opened up two other stadiums, Lower.com Field in Columbus and TQL Stadium in Cincinnati. If you haven't seen all three of them, they are absolutely spectacular. Each one brought a whole new level of design, of fan amenities, of technology, and certainly of energy for their local supporters. You know, over the past 2 decades, we've witnessed the construction or transformation of 24 stadiums that have been designed specifically for soccer. Our players and our fans, from the very beginning, we've said they deserve their own homes, a place to celebrate the game that deeply connects our clubs in their local communities. And that's an important part of why we build these stadiums. And it shouldn't be lost on anyone that the MLS owners have invested more than $4 billion in stadium development alone. And that speaks to their deep belief in the future of the sport in North America, as well as their commitment to building a league that we all can be very proud of. You know, we started this year with little sense as to how the pandemic would play out. I certainly did not think it would be year 2 of a virtual State of the League, but we were able to get fans back to our stadiums in all markets for most of the year. Our broadcast ratings and other fan engagement metrics were all up year over year. We had our strongest playoff ratings in our history, including a record 1.8 million people who watched Thanksgiving Day matchup on Fox. And that was our first Thanksgiving Day matchup, and what a match it was. The New England Revolution set a new regular season points record. Young homegrown players like Ricardo Pepi, Buchanan, George Bello, just to name a few, made a real impact for their clubs. And as I know you know, our Under 22 initiative, which is brand new, has proven to be a very important strategic initiative for our league. And some of the league's most important and well-known players retired this year. Our goal-scoring record holder, Chris Wondolowski, Federico Higuain, Matt Besler, and of course, Justin Morrow, our humanitarian of the year and the founder of the Black Players for Change. You know, ultimately, when I think back at this season, we once again demonstrated the role that Major League Soccer plays in both elevating and growing the sport here in North America. You know, coming out of the 1994 World Cup, and again, we're mindful of the 26th World Cup coming, we had a promise to launch a top-flight professional soccer league in the United States. Our owners knew that they had to focus on building a soccer nation, originally just in the United States and then obviously in Canada. The challenge for our sport was different than with most. Soccer needed this league to raise the game at every level, from youth to adult to the national teams, and obviously to the professional ranks. And despite the skepticism about whether pro soccer would make it here, from the very beginning, our owners embraced that responsibility, and not just our owners, but our staffs, our players, and thanks to everyone that's part of the MLS family, our fans, our partners, we built MLS from an idea into a respected and even admired 21st century sports league, delivering value for everyone who experiences enjoyment from or contributes to the game. Now, during the last 26 seasons, innovation and introspection, looking forward while also looking inward, have been core to the growth of Major League Soccer. While remaining authentic to the world's game, we've held true to our principles and values. We tried to make the sport better while also making our league better, and this season, I believe we did that more than ever. On the cusp of next year's World Cup and the lead up to the World Cup in 26, right here in Mexico, United States, and Canada, we're in the midst of the most exciting period in the history of soccer in our lifetimes. The professional game is growing at every level. And that, of course, starts with our fans. And I remember during my first year as commissioner seeing the Screaming Eagles and the Barra Brava shaking the stands in RFK. And I knew that we needed that in every stadium, in every market. And I recall thinking that our time will come when supporters will become our truest point of difference. 2 days ago, Jay Sugarman and I met with the Sons of Ben, and we thanked them for believing in what soccer in Philadelphia could be, even before they had a team. And in Portland, Timbers Army's faithful will begin lining up on Friday morning to be sure they get the perfect seat to see their club in their first home cup match. What we saw this past weekend in Portland and again in Philadelphia, we see every week across our league. Throughout our league, our clubs have formed a bond with their supporters and their communities to create a passionate and ever-growing fan culture. It is the calling card for our league. The supporters movement is also thriving in the NWSL and the USL and other leagues in the United States and Canada. And nothing makes us prouder in Major League Soccer than to hear the roar of fans wherever professional soccer is being played. And while ultimately we play the game for our fans, we continue to focus on ways that we could provide opportunities for a generation of people who love the game and want to be a big part of it. MLS has nearly 10,000 full-time people working for our league and clubs at all levels. Many are ex-players, and with our new focus on diversity, on equity, and on inclusion, you will see more and more opportunities for underrepresented groups. This year will also be known as the year we double down on our commitment to youth and player development with the launch of a comprehensive pro pathway for players throughout the United States and Canada. After launching MLS Next during the peak of the pandemic last year, we now have more than 600 elite youth teams, more than 11,000 kids, some, by the way, as old as 12 years old, that are competing in a 10-month season. Right now, our showcase is going on in Arizona. And don't forget that tens of thousands of kids throughout both countries who compete in teams that are affiliated with our clubs or participate in our club's programs and clinics. This is the first step in providing best-in-class youth development and the best-in-class professional environment for players and coaches. This is literally the beginning of our youth soccer commitment, and there's no doubt that this commitment will transform the sport in both countries, the United States and in Canada, in the years to come. As you might have read yesterday, we announced MLS Next Pro, a brand new league that will compete and complete the pathway between our elite academies and our first teams. This is one of the most ambitious projects in the history of Major League Soccer. And it will be the next step in the evolution of the success that we've had with our youth academies. And that's not just measured by the players that have moved from the first team, guys like Tyler Adams, Fonsel Davies, Brandon Harrison, James Sands playing for NYCFC, Ricardo Pepi, but also, and very importantly, measured by how those academies have connected our clubs, both in the broad community, but also in the soccer community. And for player development to match what happens in the most powerful soccer countries, we need world-class facilities and safe access for kids to play the game. Over the past few years, MLS clubs have invested literally almost $500 million in training and development facilities. If you haven't seen them, you should. They rival some of the best training facilities in the world. And through MLS Works, in partnership with our great sponsor Target and with the U.S. Soccer Foundation, we've constructed more than 600 mini pitches throughout the United States and Canada. NYCFC alone just unveiled their 50th mini pitch and have announced plans to build another 26 pitches across the 5 boroughs here in New York City, right prior to the 2026 World Cup. And as you might have seen with yesterday's announcement, MLS Next Pro will be an exciting and competitive league for both investors and communities that don't have a pro team, that want to see the most promising young players in the US and Canada competing in a top-class professional environment. It will be driven by innovation, both on and off the field. Imagine the things that we could do with technology, with new ideas with this new league. We'll have a focus on developing the next generation of players, the next generation of technical and business staff, and as always with Major League Soccer, we'll have a real focus on diversity. More broadly, as you might have seen this morning, we announced a new MLS diversity hiring policy as an important part of our league-wide effort to increase diversity, equity, and inclusion at all levels of our game. The new policy, which replaces the first policy that we implemented way back in 2007, remains rooted in our intention to create job opportunities for underrepresented groups in the technical ranks in MLS and soon in MLS Next and MLS Pro, especially within the Black community. I'd like to thank our new head of DEI, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, Shola Winley, and the working group that worked with Shola, which included members of the Black Players for Change, our head coaches, club presidents, our technical folks, and members of SCORE for the thoughtful work that they did to positively impact the entire MLS ecosystem. I'd also like to thank our owners on our DEI committee who championed this work, and this will be a process that will continue to drive progress in our league. Let me take a quick turn to the commercial side. As you all know, our media rights will expire at the end of the 2022 season. We've been out in the market with an unprecedented package of rights that will include every MLS game, whether it be a local game, a national game, an international game, out of market, or whether it be linear or streaming. There'll be more details to come, and I have every expectation that our new media rights agreements will be finalized during the first quarter of 2022. And obviously, we're in the market with the rights for our recently announced Leagues Cup, which is our joint venture with LigaMex, and that tournament begins in the summer of 2023. We see the new Leagues Cup as March Madness meeting the World Cup, group play leading to a knockout round with winners getting automatic berths in the CONCACAF Champions League. 80 games over 1 month in the only League v. League soccer tournament of its kind anywhere in the world. Our two leagues work very closely with Victor Montegliani and his staff at CONCACAF to create an exciting and compelling and innovative club tournament that we all believe will drive interest throughout North America and the world in our leagues and also for our confederation. Looking ahead to 22, we'll see the debut of our 28th club in Charlotte. Fans and corporate partners have truly embraced Charlotte FC with nearly 20,000 season tickets already sold. For their first match on March 5th, Charlotte FC have already sold more than 40,000 tickets, and they've set an ambitious goal of breaking the all-time MLS single-match regular season attendance record that was set by Atlanta a couple of years ago with over 70,000 fans in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Nashville SC will open their 30,000-seat stadium in May, our largest, and St. Louis City's downtown soccer complex will open later in the year, ahead of their debut in the 2023 season. As Charlotte and St. Louis become the 28th and 29th clubs in Major League Soccer, we continue our discussions with markets and potential owners regarding our 30th club. We're also very excited to look ahead at the 2022 World Cup taking place in Qatar in the fall. Our league will be proudly represented on both the United States and Canadian rosters and on national teams around the globe. We anticipate that a record number of MLS players will be competing in the World Cup next fall. Now, as we reach the end of 21, we believe that the soccer community in the United States and Canada is in the best place it's ever been, and it's only going to get better. So thanks for giving me an opportunity for some remarks, and now let's take some of your questions.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Garber. As a reminder to our journalists, you can raise your hand in the queue. We do have right around 150 people on the Zoom session today, so please be patient with us. We're going to kick it off with the first 5 questions as follows. We'll go out to Seattle, Pacific Northwest, close to Portland, with Tim Booth at the Associated Press. Then number 2, we'll go to Michael Lewis, who will be covering his 25th MLS Cup. Only COVID could keep Michael away. That was last year when he was unable to attend, but he's been to every other MLS Cup. Then we'll go to Ryan Garbosi with Newsday here in New York City. We'll talk a little expansion, I assume, with Alex from the Charlotte Observer, and then we'll go to Ryan Tolmich with Goal.com. So we'll kick it off to Tim Booth with the Associated Press. Tim?
Good morning, Don.
Morning, Tim.
How long have you been working on these updates to the diversity hiring policy? What are some of the goals that you hope to see come out of it? And you mentioned, or it mentioned in the release, about expanding this to the front office in the future. How soon do you anticipate that being part of the policy going forward?
Well, Tim, it really started with the hiring of Shola Winley, which was about a year ago. And Shola very quickly put together a plan, and the plan has got a number of components to it. We announced at our All-Star game a relationship with the Black Bank Foundation. Some of the league's debt will be held by that foundation, and that's the first in professional sports. I look forward to seeing that be expanded, hopefully throughout the sports world. And then there are obviously a number of different initiatives. I think the most important one was the new diversity hiring initiative. So about a year in the making. It started first with the DEI committee that has Shola co-chairing that with Marty Edelman, representing NYCFC, and one of the guys that created the Jackie Robinson Foundation. That committee, as you know, has both players and staff and ex-players, as well as our ownership. So we had the equivalent of the Rooney Rule in 2007. It's or 1997. I'm sorry. It's been some time, and it needed evolution. I mean, the goal is to increase representation, particularly among the Black community. We need to fill the pipeline with candidates. We've got work that we need to do there. There'll be a lot of programs and initiatives. I mentioned the innovation and opportunities we're talking about with Mls Next Pro. So that will be an opportunity for us to develop that pipeline and provide more opportunities for technical folks. We will be looking at expanding that to both Mls Next Pro and Mls Next soon. Again, Mls Next Pro was just announced. Mls Next has got a process that we've got to work through. So wait and see. That'll probably happen within the next 12 to 24 months. And then on the business side, we're going to go through the working group committee of those that worked on the policy, but also those that now will be joined by our chief business officers to ensure that we have the right policy in place. So best way to say in a long-winded answer is it will be coming soon.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Tim. Our next question, as I mentioned, will go to Michael Lewis out in Long Island. Michael?
Hey, Don. Thanks for doing this. I hope you and your family are well. Got a two-part question. As you stated, in the last 22 years, MLS teams have built and produced the most athletically pleasing stadiums for the beautiful game, including 3 for this past season. Had Real Salt Lake defeated Portland in their semifinal series, MLS Cup would have been played at the stadium. What section do you think there would have been if the final would have been held at a baseball park, given what the league has done with its stadiums? And also, is there on the status of finding a new home for NYCFC? I realize the fan base is impatient to have a stadium they can call their own.
Well, let me start, Michael. I'm convinced that NYCFC would have sold out Yankee Stadium. So, we would have had an incredible crowd. And I think it would have been a good environment. The situation in New York, as you know, continues to evolve. The ownership group is focused. They continue to work in a variety of different opportunities. You've read about those. There's no secret to what both their challenges are and what their opportunities are. I hearken back to, getting asked this question in DC, and it took them 20 years to build Audi Field. Now, I'm not saying it's going to take that long with NYCFC, but, we've got to get it right. It's not easy to build stadiums in large cities, and New York is the largest in our league. So I'm confident in time they'll be able to have a stadium of their own. I hope I'm still commissioner at that time.
All right. Thank you, Michael. We will move along to Ryan Garbosi with Newsday here out in Long Island. Ryan?
Hi, Don. On a similar front, MLS has just been working to break through in a crowded New York sports market, regardless of stadium, just whether it's TV viewership or attendance over the years, in the ways that it has in a Portland or a Philadelphia, as you discussed. How do you think NYCFC's success this season will impact the league status in the city, and how can the league and the club best capitalize on a playoff run this year?
I think it's a good question. I spoke to Marty Bettleman 2 nights ago. He told me that soon to be New York City mayor, or soon to take office, Mayor Adams tweeted out, congratulations to NYCFC, and I hope you chop some timber in Portland. I think that, you've got to have success on the field, and you've got to have relevance. It's difficult in markets where you've got more than 10 professional sports teams, as you know, but I think the team is making progress. And I think getting into their first MLS Cup has done wonders for them. And I hope to see that pay off in season tickets for them next year, their television ratings on YES, and the contribution to the national rating.
All right. Thank you, Ryan. We'll continue with our questions. We'll go to the Charlotte Observer and Alex. Alex, you are up.
Hi there, Commissioner Garber. Thanks so much for your time. Again, this is a bit of a two-part question. You mentioned Charlotte FC's ambitious attendance goals for their first year. So I'm wondering how the league feels about the club's ticket sales trajectory so far and that attendance goal. And then also that match will obviously be played, and their home matches will be played at Bank of America Stadium. You talked about the importance of soccer-specific stadiums. How does the league feel about Bank of America Stadium being a long-term home for Charlotte FC? And is that something that the league is looking at, getting Charlotte a soccer-specific stadium in the future?
Well, first is they're doing extremely well. Their season ticket sales are tracking. I think right now they've got more season tickets at this point than Atlanta United had at this point prior to their joining the league. Their commercial revenue is very strong. The team has become relevant. There's been a lot of press coming out of it. So, I think that Tom Glick's doing a good job, and David Tepper is very, very passionate about Major League Soccer and about Charlotte FC. I will say that, we are very proud of the soccer stadiums that we've built, and in most markets, that is the solution. But in some markets, as we've seen, we've been able to see great success with teams that are playing in large stadiums, as long as the MLS team owner is in control of that building and controls the schedule, controls the branding, controls the dynamic in the stadium environment. Started with Seattle, which is a high water mark that was taken even higher in Atlanta. And frankly, I think we're better off playing in Seattle and Atlanta than if we were playing in 20,000 seat stadiums. Their average attendance is north of 40,000 fans. So when we looked at Charlotte, we basically accepted the fact that in that market, the location of the team, the relevance of the Panthers, the new ownership group, that this could be another example of us capturing the moment and trying to get the kinds of crowds that we're able to attract in a large stadium, albeit one that is not built specifically for the sport. I will add that as part of our agreement with David and as part of the expansion agreement, they are, as you well know, making modifications to the stadium that will make it appropriate for soccer, both from a technical perspective and from a fan perspective. Those changes, those renovations are ongoing, and we're confident that it'll be successful.
All right, thank you, Alex. Before we go to our next question, which is Ryan Tolmich with Goal.com. After Ryan, we'll have 5 more questions. We'll continue the order. We're going to have Brian Strauss with Sports Illustrated, Alex Silverman with the Morning Consult, Sam Steshkel with The Athletic, Mick Akers out in Las Vegas with the Review Journal, and Chris Bills with the Striker in Texas. But we will go back to Charlotte, which I believe, Ryan, that's where you're based, for a question from Goal.com. Ryan?
Oh, thank you, and thanks for taking the time, Don. You know, you mentioned in your remarks some of the steps the league has taken with young players in particular, and ultimately the development and the sale of those young players. And you've talked in the past about being a league of choice, but also now a selling league. And over the years, you've seen, you know, domestic and international players choose MLS to start their careers, and ultimately the league has given them the platform to move on to some of the best clubs and leagues in the world. You know, when looking at this as a selling league, a development league, everything like that, that concept, how far along in that process do you think you guys are when it comes to achieving your goals with young players? And how do you feel the perception or the narrative surrounding MLS as a development league has kind of changed over the last few years?
Well, it's a good question. You know, I get asked this a lot about saying it was a selling league. It was really, we were a buying league only, and we needed to be like every other soccer football league around the world. We were both buying and selling. We still are buying more than we're selling, but we are reaching the point where we're able to create value for the players that we're investing in, the facilities that are training them, and becoming a league that is involved and engaged in the international marketplace, no different than any other league. And we're on path to achieving our goals in that front. We ultimately, as I mentioned before, you know, we spent more money and bought more players than any time in the summer of 21 than in the last 5 seasons prior to that. So it is the balance that we're trying to achieve, and I think right now we're in a fairly good spot. To your point, we're bringing in younger players. I don't think there should be in anybody's mind this idea of people coming to Major League Soccer broadly as a place to retire. There are always going to be players that are going to come the latter part of the year. And, you know, Zlatan went to Milan when he was 37 or 38. So I'm not worried about 1 or 2 players. It really is, where is our focus? And the focus is on bringing in young players. Our new U22 initiative, which is significant, and brought in almost 40 players from around the world that are coming in and contributing to their clubs, including, as you saw, with NYCFC and Portland. So far the process is working well. I think you'll see it continue to evolve and even get more valuable for our clubs.
All right, thank you, Ryan. We'll continue with our questions. Our next question goes to Brian Strauss with Sports Illustrated. Brian?
Thanks, Dan. Hey, Don. Just wondering if you could provide an update on the state or progress of your conversations with Wes Edens in Vegas. Are you still on schedule for some kind of announcement over, I guess it would be now, the next 10 months? Are there any other ownership groups or cities that might be in the mix? And how does the what's happening in 2023 with the Leagues Cup and the TV deal sort of change your calculus of when you want to get that 30th team on the field? You know, you mentioned 80 games. You need 48 teams to do that. So just curious what kind of time pressure you're under. Thanks.
Right. A good question, Brian. So we're making progress, as has been announced or has been leaked in Las Vegas. We're excited about the market, as are all the other leagues here in North America. Wes is a guy that we all have longstanding relationships with. By the way, he had looked at other MLS clubs over the years. We'll continue those discussions and continue to try to get something done with our 30th team. Your timetable is a good one, within the next 10 months. We have not yet determined when that 30th team would start playing. You're right. We did mention 48 teams in our Leagues Cup announcement. The 30th team will not be in by 2023, and that's something that everybody should be aware of. We hope to be able to have some great news as it relates to our facility plans in Las Vegas. I want to point out that we're still in discussions with other markets, both Phoenix and San Diego. I think that the interest in Major League Soccer continues to grow. The value that investors look at when they're determining how they want to engage with professional soccer or even professional sports overall is at an all-time high. So news to come out sometime in the next 12 months, but a lot of progress being made.
Thank you, Brian. We'll continue. Our next question goes to Alex Silverman with Morning Consult. Alex?
Hey, thanks for taking the time. I know you've said that you believe the leagues should have more say with regard to the FIFA's biennial World Cup proposal. I'm curious sort of where, in terms of the merit of the idea, where you stand on it, and do you think that there's potential that having the World Cup more often could, increase the popularity of the sport in the U.S.?
Well, I don't believe that the World Cup is the only driver of popularity, and you're not implying that, right? So, if you had a World Cup every year, I'm sure everybody would be excited about it. There's no practicality to it, and in my personal view, I think it dilutes, what I think is the best sports event in the world. So let me get back to your original question. I sit on the World League Forum Executive Committee. We just had an announcement that was made last week. The World League Forum is not in support of the biannual World Cup. The impact that it has on our players, on our clubs, and our leagues is something that we think would not be worth what it would take in order to, in some people's views, grow the popularity of the sport, whether it's here or any other place around the world. Now, by the way, I see the merit in what FIFA is trying to do, which is ultimately to generate a lot of revenue and distribute that revenue to those countries that are developing. I think there are many other ways to achieve that without having to go at it with a World Cup every 2 years. I've made comments when I've said this to President Infantino in a very respectful way. He and I have a good relationship. I think Gianni's doing a good job, and it's a challenging job, to say the least, that I think the stakeholders for the game need to have a say in the decisions that are made at the governing body level internationally. At UEFA, for example, the FIFPro, its clubs, the ECA, its league, the European League Association, has a seat at the UEFA governance level. And the clubs and the leagues don't have a say at FIFA. I don't think necessarily that that's something that will change, but I think good governance will drive. Good governance drives good decision making. It drives transparency, and maybe at some point there will be something beyond just consultation, but actual engagement. And by the way, I don't necessarily think that anybody other than the 200 plus countries will dominate the decision-making process, and as well it should be. But it would be nice to be able to sit around the table and at least have a forum at the decision-making level on things that have a dramatic impact on stakeholders like the professional leagues.
All right, thank you, Alex. Our next question will go to Sam Steshko with The Athletic. Sam.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Don, for taking the time. Hope you're doing well.
Thank you.
You guys have made great strides in attracting new owners. We're seeing the prices of teams rise dramatically. Stadiums and facilities, as you've mentioned, are incredible around the league. But there are still issues that you're working through in regards to competition, particularly with how your teams fare against their counterparts in Mexico. With the Leagues Cup on the horizon, do you think the current system, roster rules, calendar, playoff format, all of those things, maximizes the level of play possible at the current level of spending? And then a second unrelated question, can you give us an update on the RSL ownership situation?
Sure. So Sam, I first of all, as you well know, you follow this as close as anybody. We continue to do better and better against Liga MX in CONCACAF competition. We won the Campeones Cup in Columbus a couple months ago. We continue to do better. And I think, Sam, if you were to ask Liga MX owners, if you were to ask those that are involved in that league, they see Major League Soccer on par competitively with their league. And certainly we're seeing that happen at the national team level. That's gone in ebbs and flows over the years, and I think you'll see ebbs and flows in competition between our two leagues, because until the Leagues Cup, it's not an ongoing competition. There are many cases just a select few clubs that are participating. I think the purpose of the Leagues Cup is to provide a profile for the two dominant leagues in this part of the world and help CONCACAF have more profile, ultimately more revenue and more influence in the global game. And I'm convinced the Leagues Cup will achieve that. That's why Victor and the CONCACAF group was so supportive of it. And I want to remind you again, Sam, it's not just about our salary budget. It's about what our teams are spending both below that with homegrown player development and what they're saying above it in all the discretionary spending that our clubs have an opportunity to do. So ultimately, I'm not convinced that spending is going to have a dramatic effect in the short term. We just got to get better. We have to be prepared more. We have a crowded calendar. Obviously, the CONCACAF Champions League happens at a time which is not optimum for us. The Leagues Cup, in many ways, will level set that. So let's wait for 2023 and see how we do there. And in my State of the League address, or maybe somebody's State of the League address in 2024, can answer that question, whether the things that we've been doing from a development perspective and investment perspective have paid off. RSL. Listen, I have to give a great shout out to John Kimball. John Kimball has managed that club, reporting into the league office without having the benefit of day-to-day engagement of an owner. And with Pablo has done a tremendous job. I mean, it is a great story for Major League Soccer. And by the way, commercially, their season ticket sales are up for 2022. Pablo's done a great job with resources that in many ways were under pressure. So I'm proud of what John's done. We continue to be engaged in discussions with potential owners. You've heard rumors about that. I'm hopeful that we'll be able to get something closed. We had a timetable to get that done by the end of the year. We'll see if that's still achievable. That's only a couple of weeks away. If not, I'm hopeful we'll get something done soon.
Thank you, Sam. Our next question will go to Mick Akers with the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Mick? Mick, I think your mic is on mute right now. All right, we'll give him another second. We can always certainly come back to it. Oh, no problem. You're back on now, Mick.
Yeah, circling back to Vegas, obviously mentioned with Wes and all that. So how does the two teams out here, the Knights and the Raiders, their success out here, how does that play into it? Also, we have the A's out here, looking about, possible relocation. Does that factor into the decision at all? Like, is that like if they came here and they say, hey, we're coming first before your announcement, would that kind of sour anything you guys have, possibly working towards the momentum out here in Las Vegas? And then secondly, as far as the stadium out here, what kind of capacity?
Okay, well, I lost the second part of it, but I think I could figure it out. So what the A's decide to do will have no impact on our plans whatsoever. I think you probably know that the owner of the A's is also the owner of the San Jose Earthquakes. John Fisher is a wonderful guy. He'll be a great owner, and I wish him success in whatever his baseball stadium solution might be, whether that be in Vegas or Oakland or any place else. I am just blown away by what's going on in Las Vegas, and I've been in the sports business for a really long time. I didn't see it coming. You might know that Lamar Hunt, in the earliest days of Major League Soccer, upon its founding year, in its early founding years, met with Oscar Goodman about Major League Soccer. We're talking 26 years ago. I've met with both Oscar and with Carolyn Goodman many times over the years. We had a number of different goes at looking at Vegas for, Dan, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. This is the approach that we feel the most confident in. I am just what has been done with the Knights is what Bill has done is remarkable. I think it's one of the great expansion team launches in the history of professional sports, and what Mark has done with the Raiders, both on the field and with Allegiant, is spectacular. So we're very bullish about the market, and we'll continue to plow forward. I can't really comment on what our stadium plans are at this point because they're still fluid. But hopefully sometime in the next couple of months we'll have more to talk about.
All right, thank you, Mick. We'll continue our questions. Our next question, before we go to Chris Bills, after Chris, we'll have Tim Sullivan down in Nashville. Then we'll have Mark Burns with the Sports Business Journal, John Rojas up here in the New York City area. We'll go to Patrice Worthy with The Guardian, Doug Robertson with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and Jose Romero with the Arizona Republic. So, Chris Bills, you are up.
Hi, Don. Thanks for the time. You mentioned at the top the success in Austin, as far as the spectacle. Can you just expand on that, what you've seen from Austin? And is it fair to say that Austin's exceeded your expectations for what it could look like in this city? And what have you learned about sustaining that kind of off-field success? And then a second part, just building off of the Liga MX partnership. You guys had the All-Star game this summer in Los Angeles. Is there any plans being made to continue that, future MLS versus Liga MX All-Star games?
So, let me respond to the first part. Without doubt, Austin has exceeded our expectations. And I got to give a real shout out to Anthony Precourt. This was a traumatic process for Anthony, for his family, for Major League Soccer. But I think he saw something in Austin that has turned into, as I said early on, MLS at its very best. Terrific brand launch, a great fan engagement, unbelievable stadium, the environment, the rituals. It is what Major League Soccer wants to say about itself as we position ourselves against the rest of the world, and really part of the top leagues in the world. Matthew McConaughey is active. I mean, Matthew is, as you know, the Minister of Culture for the university, the Minister of Culture for Austin FC, and he's engaged. I speak with him about marketing. I speak with him about branding, about things that he could do to help the league grow. The local ownership group, and I think this is important. It's not just what Anthony has done. It's Eddie Margain, who's his partner, and other local investors. So they have the connection in the community. Anthony now lives in Austin. So, check on so many different things. And I think it's just the beginning. This was their inaugural year. As it relates to the All-Star game, the next All-Star game will be in Minnesota, as we've announced. We haven't come up with a format yet as to whether or not it will be MLS versus Liga MX. Clearly, that was a great game. And Sam, for you, that was a competitive match, and beating Liga MX was something that was a lot of fun. And I'm smiling because I know I don't think they expected to get beaten at Banc of California this summer. So we'll see what happens with the opponent. We're going to make that determination sometime over the next number of months.
All right, we'll continue our questions. Our next question, we are scheduled to go to Tim Sullivan. So we'll turn it over to Tim.
Thanks, Dan, and thanks, Don. Don, as you guys have already announced, Nashville is going back to the Western Conference this year. What is your long-term vision of kind of how the conference alignment shakes out? Is it going to remain a two-conference league? And then you mentioned two markets in addition to Vegas in Phoenix and San Diego. Does that portend maybe a long-term Eastern Conference destination for Nashville?
Well, as you can imagine, it is being debated significantly amongst our board and clearly amongst our technical and business folks. So best thing I could say is we know where they're going to be next year, and we'll have to figure out what happens with them in terms of what conference they're in 2023. There is no plan to expand the number of conferences to date. Once we make the final decision on 30th teams, I suppose we'll look at it as we look at everything, but I'm not foreshadowing in any way that there might be changes to it. As it relates to San Diego and Phoenix, I think the point here, and I don't know if anybody's going to ask about MLS Next Pro, but the development of professional soccer in our country is nothing short of remarkable. And Major League Soccer is only 26 years old, at a point prior to that where there was not a professional league on the men's side or the women's side at the first division. And now I believe that we can support professionally, 100 professional teams. And Major League Soccer is not going to have, at least in our current thinking, more than 30. So think about what the landscape is going to look like and what all of that will do to develop the game at so many different levels: fan level, facility level, player development level. So, I will say to the group here that, we don't have any plans to expand beyond 30 teams at this point, but like everything else, life's a long time. I don't know what professional soccer is going to look like 10 years from now or 20 years from now, and how many divisions will be, and what our league will look like, or what the other leagues will look like, where the women's game fits in. What I will say is that we're just very bullish about the professional game, and I think there's a lot of opportunity for us all.
All right, thank you, Tim. Our next question, we're going to go to the Sports Business Journal and Mark Burns. So if we could go ahead and open up Mark Burns' microphone. Mark, you are good to go.
Thanks, Dan. And Don, thanks so much for the time. Two quick things, if I can. One is it safe to say Vegas, and just to confirm this, Vegas is the front runner this time to be the 30th club? And
yes.
Then, okay. And then the other question is, given how long it's taken to, I know there were some issues on, the early few months and the league coming in and taking over the sales process, but is there any pause for concern about how long it's taken to find a buyer with RSL, and any, pause for concern about the health and attractiveness of MLS to future owners, future investors? Thanks.
No, I mean, Mark, the absolute opposite is true there. There is, as you know, you follow this closely, multiple folks interested in RSL. It's a complicated situation for all the reasons that everybody knows, but there is no question that the level of interest in investing in Major League Soccer is at an all-time high. You saw the valuations that came out in Forbes, and those valuations aren't made up there. The recapitalization of ownership groups for our teams, and some of them as high as north of $700 million. So I would say without doubt, the level of interest and energy to invest in Major League Soccer has never been higher. And by the way, and in the USL and in the NWSL. So I think that is a very positive thing for the professional game overall, and not at all related to whatever the situation is in Salt Lake.
All right, thank you, Mark. Our next question will go to John Rojas. John. All right, John, your mic is open now.
You there? Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Commissioner, for your time. Commissioner, at the beginning, you talked about the initiatives and regulations that are helping and will boost the development of young talent. And at the same time, we saw from past years how international young talent is coming more and more to MLS. Is there any thought around the league in the possibility of those international young talents coming up in a big number, maybe blocking the path for the local young talent, maybe regulations, under 23 rule, whatever it is, that help those young talent to keep, a big chunk of the possibilities to be on a first team roster?
Yeah, it's a good question. And, I'll answer it in a more comprehensive way. We're very close to the Mexican League. The Leagues Cup is not just about a competition. There's all sorts of things going on, and we follow very closely how they've been developing domestic players, their relationship with their federation. They've had a domestic player rule with minutes and the like, and then they've got rid of it. And there's so many different things that have happened in the evolution down there to ensure that they're driving the success of the domestic player. Now, look at where Major League Soccer is and its relationship to developing players that are now the stars and the regular starters for our national team. Vast majority of those players have come through Major League Soccer in some way, whether it's early on in an academy at J.O. Reyna, or it's players that are playing in our league and move on, Tyler Adams. The examples are countless, Brandon Aronson, it's on and on and on. So I don't think that there is any question whatsoever that the dynamic that we have now, which is developing the talents for American and Canadian players, are driven by the competitive rules that we have and the investment that our owners are making in training and in our facilities. I said in 2006, 2007, up in Canada, a press conference in a hotel in Toronto, that we will not rest until Canada qualifies for the World Cup, because the real value to having our teams in Vancouver and Montreal and Toronto is to help develop the Canadian national team. And they've done that. You can see the success of the Canadian national team. So I don't think that the influx of international players, our U22 initiative, our designated player rule, which, by the way, has both domestic players and international players benefiting, our direct discretionary spending, which benefits both domestic players, probably more so even than international players. The model we have now is working. And as long as we see American and Canadian players getting better and better opportunities, I don't see any reason to change it. It's a good question. We spent a lot of time thinking about it.
Thank you, John. We'll continue with our questions. We will go to Patrice Worthy with The Guardian. Patrice.
Hello, Don. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us today. My question is two-part. I wanted to know, with the efforts to increase diversity in your fan base among Black Americans, how significant is this MLS Cup, considering many of the star players this year in the match are Black? And are you taking advantage of this opportunity to increase a Black fan base and show off your minority talent? And can you speak to us a little bit about the timeliness of this match with the star Black players being in Portland?
I will tell you, it never even occurred to me that the number of Black players that we have on the field in this cup would reflect any differently than the diversity of our player pool. So I think that shows that when we're thinking about branding and marketing, we're not looking to take what our teams look like on the field and try to reflect that in how we're positioning it with fans. Because ultimately what we're trying to do, and it's a really interesting question, you could see how I hesitated in thinking about how I would answer it. What we're trying to do is position our league as a league for a new America. That is a changing, new North America, a changing US and Canada, which is incredibly diverse, that has people from all over the world that are living in and engaging and are playing the game and are following our teams. And whether that be in the Black and Brown community or the LGBTQ community, whether it's young people or it's families, we're trying to say that we are a league that's fun, that's exciting, that's different in many ways than the other offerings in town. And therefore, you should be part of the experience. So I'll just respond to that as it relates to the player pool. That being said, we do have a increasingly large percentage of our player pool being Black players. And that's reflecting sort of the fact that our sport is getting more ingrained in the grassroots. It is becoming more active in the inner city, thanks to what is happening in our country, what our federation is beginning to do, what our foundation is beginning to do, and basically the overall growth of participation and, frankly, the values that being a professional player can provide. What we are working on with our diversity initiative is ensuring that we have more representation in our technical staff and then soon in our front offices to reflect the diversity of our country and, to your point, the increased number of Black players that are participating on our fields. So long, short, we're not branding and focused that on particular target audiences. We are very focused on ensuring we have proper representation and proper opportunities. By the way, I think that's the responsibility and obligation of every business, whether it's here or around the world. I think we all have to have an awakening of what happened over the last year and ensure that we're doing our part. diversity hiring initiative is bold. It's not going to be easy. And I think it's our attempt at making a difference. So it's a good question.
Thank you, Patrice. We will continue with our questions. Our next question, we will go down to Atlanta with Doug Robertson with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Doug?
Thanks, Dan. Thank you, Commissioner. Kind of a two-part question. Within the ongoing media rights negotiations, will the MLS Next Pro games be included in that package?
You want to ask the second part? I'll answer both. You want me to answer one at a time?
That's good to know.
Okay.
And also here in Atlanta, the supporters that don't have traditional cable and use other platforms couldn't watch some of the team's games because its regional TV partner wasn't available on those platforms. I think you touched on this, but will the new rights deal eliminate that kind of issue?
Well, I think these are issues that our entire industry is going through. There's it's a transformation, as we all know, and I don't have to tell you folks as media people, the digital transformation and how people consuming content and how that is being impacted by legacy contracts, legacy partnerships. You just got to look at, how the leagues that have local deals, hockey, basketball, baseball, are going to have to think about what the future of their media partnerships are going to look like, and I'm sure they'll figure that out. Our new package sort of takes a step forward in assuming and accepting the fact that consumers are going to engage in ways without barriers that are specific to gating or specific to local markets. We're seeing that with our ESPN Plus package. I mean, this isn't tomorrow. This is happening today and even has been happening for the last couple of years. So our package will have every game, including our local games, in the package. Many years ago, we went to our clubs and said, all of your local deals need to expire by the end of the 22 season. All of your streaming deals need to expire, by the way. All of your data deals, all of your sports betting deals, everything that has a touch point with a consumer is all now in a package that we're able to engage with traditional media companies that are transforming themselves digitally, to new media companies, call them the FANGs, and new streamers, whether they be domestic or regional streamers, or whether they be broad global streamers. And it's an exciting time for us to think about what that could look like 23 and beyond. And yes, our MLS Next Pro games are all part of that package. How do we produce those games, and whether or not they're with one carrier or with direct to consumer, all things that we're looking at. Been working on this for years. And I'm confident that somebody who's got a kid that's playing in MLS Next is going to be able to watch their kid play in a very unique and exciting offering. So all to be done, Doug, and something we hope to get resolved in the first quarter.
Thank you, Doug. Since we are pushing over an hour here, we're going to actually wrap up today with Jose Romero with the Arizona Republic. So we will turn it over to Jose. You are on, Jose.
Thank you, Dan, and good afternoon, Commissioner. You mentioned Phoenix and expansion earlier. What developments have taken place, if any, with regard to expansion in the Phoenix market? Does Vegas, as the front runner, as you mentioned, mean anything for this market being in the same region? And lastly, what do you feel is most needed out here to be a better expansion candidate?
Well, really what we need is a great facility, right? Think about what could happen in Las Vegas. In Las Vegas, you could conceivably see a soccer stadium that looks like a mini version of Allegiant or a mini version of your stadium for your football team in Arizona. And in an environment like that, and temperature being what it is, that would be what I would say would have to happen, in my opinion, in order for Phoenix to be a great first division team in Major League Soccer. Yes, Las Vegas is a front runner, but what I will say, and I was thinking about it as I was talking about expansion, again, please don't take this as foreshadowing anything that will change our 30-team league. But if you look at the fact that every other top major league in our country is 30 or 32 teams, that in many ways is driven by conference setup. And it's also driven in many ways by the geography of our country and dilution from a player pool and the dilution of large national revenue distribution. But in MLS, with all the things that are going on, or I should say in professional soccer, with all the things that are going on, I'm not quite sure that 30 teams is the ultimate end goal for Major League Soccer. Now, that being said, nobody should take away that we have any plans to go to 30 teams. But I think as our country and Canada continues to evolve and develop, and this could happen many, many years in the future, there's no reason to think that there wouldn't be more teams that potentially could be part of Major League Soccer in the years ahead.
All right. Thank you, Jose. And thank you to all of our journalists for joining us today. We appreciate your coverage throughout the entire season and look forward to seeing many of you in Portland at MLS Cup this weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.